Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Lollipop and it's been a while since I made a comparison video like this, but Specialized has released all of their 2022 or early 2023 Rockhopper bikes, and since my previous 2021 Rockhopper video was so popular, I wanted to make an update of that video for the new models. Definitely check out my previous 2021 video if you are interested in the 2021 bikes. I'll link that video in the description below as well as to the top right of the screen right now. The Rockhopper lineup currently has 5 different bikes in it, so things can get confusing if you are trying to figure out which one you want to buy. In this video, I'm going to compare all 5 Specialized Rockhopper models with each other, focusing on the main differences between these bikes that will affect how they ride on trails. I'm going to keep this video organized by focusing on a single component at a time, such as the suspension fork, the brakes, or the drivetrain, and all of the drivetrain parts like the shifters and derailleurs, so you can get a pretty in-depth comparison. And like always, I will make tables at the end of this video that show all of the main differences in one place, and at that point I'll also give you my thoughts on which bike is the best value. So if this video is helpful to you, please consider liking the video, subscribing to my channel, and clicking on that bell icon to get notified when I make more videos like these. Alright, let's get into this by first giving you a background on the Specialized Rockhoppers. If you don't know much about Specialized, the Rockhopper is an iconic bike that has always been a popular bike for mountain bikers, and Specialized did completely revise the bike for 2021, so these models all use the newest frame available. It is classified as a cross-country bike, so it's intended to be lightweight and focus on beginner or intermediate trails, but the lineup does also include a couple more expensive bikes that can be used on more difficult trails, as well as some less expensive models that can even be used to commute. There are no gender-specific versions of any of these bikes, but what's cool about them is that each of the 5 models come in either 29 or 27.5-inch wheel sizes, so you can choose which wheel size you prefer. This does also mean that the frames are different between the sizes, so you cannot get a 27.5 Rockhopper, for example, and put a 29-inch wheel set on it. There are also 26-inch wheel size versions available, but only in the 2 least expensive models, and they only come in the extra small frame size. A few more things to note are, for one, the price of these bikes remains the same regardless of the wheel size, and 2, although there are wheel size options, you can only get a 27.5 wheel bike in sizes extra small to medium, and you can only get a 29-inch wheel bike in sizes small to extra large. Okay, now let's move on to the comparison. The 5 bikes in this lineup are the normal Rockhopper, the Rockhopper Sport, Rockhopper Comp, Rockhopper Elite, and the Rockhopper Expert. For my comparison, I'm going to show pictures of the 29-inch wheel bikes to make it simple, but before we get into those differences, I do want to talk about all the similarities between these 5 bikes, so we have a baseline to work off of. So each bike in the current Rockhopper lineup, for a specific wheel size, uses the same exact frame, stem, handlebars, and grips, seat post, seat, and pedals. I won't focus on these parts in this video since if you get any of the Rockhopper bikes, you will get these components regardless of which bike you choose. However, I will quickly show you guys the main geometry specifications on the Rockhopper frame if you are into measurements. You can see we have a 68.5 degree head tube angle for the 29-inch wheel bike, and that's more on the cross-country side, as well as a 73.5 degree seat tube angle, which is fine, but it could be a little steeper for some better positioning on the bike for trail riding. Now let's finally get into those differences, starting with the price. Now all of these retail prices are correct at the time of me making this video, but they are subject to change. The regular Rockhopper comes in at $650 US, while the Rockhopper Sport is priced at $750. The Rockhopper Comp is $950, the Elite is $1,150, and the Expert is $1,400. These prices have definitely increased significantly since 2021, but for these price increases, let's see what changes on the bikes, starting with the colors. I'll try to be quick here because Specialized has pretty long names for their colors. So the Rockhopper comes in satin olive green, satin cast blue metallic, gloss tarmac black, and gloss flow red. The Rockhopper Sport comes in gloss blaze, Gloss White Mountains, Satin Forest Green, and Satin Slate. The comp has a Satin Brassy Yellow, Gloss California White Sage, Gloss Redwood, and Satin Cast Battleship. The Elite comes in a Satin Doppio, Gloss Arctic Blue, and a Gloss Sage Green. And finally, the Rockhopper Expert comes in Gloss Lagoon Blue, Gloss Oak Green Metallic, and Satin Silver Dust. Okay, let's talk about the suspension forks next. The smaller wheel size bikes have less suspension travel at 80 or 90 millimeters, but all the other bikes use 100 millimeters of travel, and all of them use quick release axles so you can easily get the wheel off of the bike without a tool. The regular Rockhopper uses an SR Suntour XCE coil spring fork, which has 28mm wide stanchions. This fork is very entry level and not intended for intense mountain biking, but the Rockhopper Sport upgrades to an SR Suntour XCM coil spring fork, which has larger 30mm wide stanchions for added rigidity and strength. Upgrading that even more, we have the same XCM fork on the Rockhopper Comp, but this time it comes with a lockout. And this is a knob on the fork that you can turn to make the fork fully rigid, and that helps you gain some more speed in flat areas such as on the road. And lastly, both the Rockhopper Elite and Expert use a RockShox Judy fork, which also has 30mm stanchions. The Judy still has a lockout and is a great upgrade since it is lighter in weight, provides better damping on the trail, and is more adjustable since, unlike the other forks, this one is an air fork, which means you can add or remove air to make it stiffer for your weight and riding style. Next, we have the brakes. The regular Rockhopper uses Radius CX7 mechanical disc brakes with 160mm wide brake rotors, which are also very entry level and not nearly as good as any of the other brakes here. Then, for some reason, the Rockhopper Sport and the Elite use the same brakes, which are the Shimano MT200 hydraulic disc brakes, with wider 180mm rotors in the front and rear for added stopping power. These Shimano brakes are reliable and popular among bikes at this price range, and they will perform just fine for these bikes. Then the Rockhopper Comp and Expert use the same brakes as well, which are the SRAM level hydraulic disc brakes. These bikes also come with 180mm wide brake rotors, and in terms of quality, the Shimano and SRAM brakes are pretty equal, but they just have some different ergonomics. Now let's talk about the wheels. All the rims are 25mm in width, but the Rockhopper and Rockhopper Sport bikes use the exact same 32-hole Specialized alloy rims, which use Schrader valves. The other three bikes switch to the stout alloy rims that are 28-hole for added strength and lighter weight, but only the Elite and Expert have tubeless ready rims. All the bikes use 2.35-inch wide tires in the front and rear, which is a good width for cross-country and light trail riding, and all of them will use the same tread pattern. And Specialized is good at making tires, so these ones will perform well on the trail for sure. The Rockhopper, Rockhopper Sport, and Rockhopper Comp all use these same Fast Track Sport tires, which are lower end tires but still good, while the Elite and Expert bikes use the Fast Track Tubeless Ready tires. These tires are basically the same, the only difference is that the Expert and Elite models have a better compound in the tire that allows them to be set up tubeless. Thus, only the Rockhopper Elite and Expert have the full tubeless ready setup, which is beneficial since you can more easily remove the inner tubes to make your bike lighter, eliminate any risk of pinch flats, and run lower pressures in your tires to improve grip and stability out on the trail. And for the wheel hubs, they are all from the brand Formula. Nothing special, so I won't cover them in detail here since they are all pretty similar. But finally, we have the last component difference among the bikes, which is the drivetrain. Each bike uses a different drivetrain, with the normal Rockhopper using a mixed 2x8 drivetrain, meaning that the bike has 2 gears in the front crankset and 8 gears in the rear cassette for a total of 16 speeds. The Rockhopper Sport goes to a 2x9 setup, which is mainly composed of Microshift Marvo parts. The Comp model then goes to the Microshift Advent 1x9 system, and the Elite upgrades to the Shimano Dior 1x11. And lastly, the Expert uses a SRAM SX Eagle 1x12. The Rockhopper and Sport models have 2 gears in the front crankset, which is not as efficient for mountain biking since there are more moving parts and an unnecessary amount of speeds on the trail, However, these drivetrains are going to be better for commuting or riding on the road. The top three models have only one gear in the front for ease of use, and either 9, 11, or 12 gears in the back to give you some more speeds. Okay, now let's move on to some of the main components that differentiate these drivetrains. Starting with the shifters, the Rockhopper uses a micro shift Mezzo 8-speed shifter, which is a pretty normal shifter that works fine, but the Rockhopper Sport upgrades to the micro shift Marvo, which has some more durable materials for construction and allows you to shift up to 3 gears at once when going to an easier gear for pedaling, which is helpful when you are going up a hill and need to downshift really quick. Then the Comp uses a microshift Advent shifter, which is smoother, quicker, and built for the 1x drivetrain, and also has that feature to shift up to 3 gears. And the Elite comes with a Shimano Dior M50 100 shifter, which is a good upgrade since that shifter is really good and very reliable. It shifts quickly and smoothly and can shift up to 3 gears at a time as well. And lastly, we have the SRAM SX Eagle shifter on the Rockhopper Expert, and this shifter isn't as high quality as the Shimano Dior in my opinion, but it gets the job done. This one actually has the ability to shift up to 5 gears at once when going to an easier gear, which is cool. The cheaper two bikes use front derailleurs for their 2x drivetrains, but I won't cover those in much detail since they're the same and they work fine. The rear derailleur, however, is a component I want to discuss. The Rockhopper uses a microshift Mezzo rear derailleur that is once again entry level, but it does work pretty good. The Rockhopper Sport just upgrades to the microshift Marvo derailleur, and that is pretty similar, but it has better construction as it is made entirely out of metal instead of metal and plastic. Then the Comp uses a microshift Advent, which is a big upgrade since it has a clutch on the derailleur that allows you to add tension on the bike to prevent it from skipping gears, falling off, or making a lot of noise. It also has smoother and more reliable shifting overall. The Elite bike then uses a Shimano Dior derailleur with a clutch as well, and this one has really good construction quality and will shift even better than the other derailleurs. And finally, we have the Rockhopper Expert, which comes with a SRAM SX Eagle rear derailleur. Now, this derailleur is SRAM's lowest end 12-speed derailleur, so in all honesty, it isn't the best. It tends to bend very easily and usually breaks within the first year of riding from my experience, so that's a bit unfortunate. However, it does work well if you take good care of it. I'll skim over the front cranksets as well since these parts are pretty similar, but the Rockhopper and Sport bikes use the exact same 2x stout crankset with 24 teeth on the smaller chainring and 36 on the larger one, while the Comp and Elite use the same 1x stout crankset with 30 teeth. And lastly, the Expert uses the SRAM SX Eagle 30-tooth crankset for the respective SRAM drivetrain. But the final drivetrain component I'll talk about is the cassette. The Rockhopper uses a Sunrace 11-34 tooth 8-speed cassette, while the Sport uses a slightly wider range Sunrace 11-36 tooth 9-speed. The Rockhopper Comp uses a microshift Advent 11-42 tooth, and the Elite has a massive Shimano Dior 11-51 tooth 11-speed cassette. And finally, the Rockhopper Expert comes with a SRAM SX Eagle 11-50 tooth cassette. You'll notice that as we go up the model range, the number of teeth in the largest cog in the cassette goes up. This translates to easier pedaling while going uphill, and as the number of speeds increase, you get a wider range of gears in the 1x drivetrains for more incremental speeds and thus more efficient pedaling. You'll also notice that the widest range cassette is actually on the Rockhopper Elite, not the Expert. Alright, so now I'm going to show you those completed tables one at a time and give you my thoughts on this lineup. So these bikes have not changed too much since 2021, which is unfortunate since they are much more expensive now. Actually, every single bike has increased in price by at least $150, which is crazy, but that's just how things have been going recently in the bike world. Regardless of that, if you do look at the price differences in the lineup, they are pretty incremental, but in my opinion, the best overall bike is the Specialized Rockhopper Elite. I'd say the regular Rockhopper is for someone who either wants a more rugged commuter bike or is on a budget, while the Rockhopper Sport is more for the beginner mountain bike rider or for someone who just wants an all-around good bike to commute and mountain bike with. The Comp is a little bit better with some nicer features like the suspension lockout and the 1x drivetrain to make things a lot easier and smoother on the trail, so that one is a really good beginner mountain bike as well. The issue with this one is that it has less speeds and still has a coil spring fork, so the parts are still not that great. The Elite is a great value in my opinion since it comes with that tubeless ready setup, and the Judy air fork, which is very good, as well as a Shimano Dior 1x11 drivetrain that is extremely reliable. The Expert is $250 more than the Elite, but it really doesn't change anything besides switching the Shimano drivetrain to the SRAM drivetrain, and I personally like the Shimano one more. The SRAM SX Eagle drivetrain is heavier and less reliable, especially with that SX rear derailleur that tends to break very easily. So based on all that, I would definitely go with the Elite. I have no complaints on that bike at all, whereas every other bike I have some things that I don't like as much. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and if you did enjoy the video or if it did help you out, please leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment below if you noticed a mistake or have any questions or suggestions for me. I always appreciate the feedback and support from you guys, so with that, I hope all of you have a wonderful day today, and remember to keep biking.